This episode is about imposter syndrome, which is another thing that I don't know anything about firsthand, which qualifies me to talk at length about to other people who know what it feels like.
And I feel like I know way too much about it because I spend every day of my life just stuck in this pit with it. Just kidding.
This might just be a Q&A for me and you. Just like, how does it feel to be crazy?
Well, when I was doing like research and like trying to prepare for this video, I was thinking of imposter syndrome as more, I guess as it relates to like self-doubt, level of skill, like legitimacy in terms of like accomplishments and what other people think. So I don't know what your take on it was, but that was just kind of like where I was coming from.
You know, I have the basic Twitter definition. It's somebody who doesn't feel like they're the real deal or whatever. They feel like they're a faker. I would say is pretty much a poser.
Oh, okay.
Is how I would define
Okay.
it. And I guess I just thought about it when we originally started filming this a few weeks ago or a week ago, I don't remember now. And we scrapped that episode. And I did think about it more, and I guess I understand how it feels in terms of being a publisher, but not an artist. With my own books and all that, I've kind of come to terms very recently with the concept of outsider art. You know what that is?
Yeah.
Dan, I'll explain for the audience that. I was hoping you would, and then I'd sound smart. You pretend you don't know what it is.
I know it from like a visual art standpoint, but I don't know if you have a different definition.
It's probably exactly that. I heard about it in reference to Daniel Johnston, where it's basically somebody who's not traditionally trained in their craft, and it's typically associated with people with mental illness, and it's just kind of outsider art from the schools of art, so to speak. I don't know how to get more into it. I've kind of accepted my position therein, and I've always said that my writing is just a symptom of my mental illness, so it fits in pretty well. And so I never really wanted to be a part of it. I think about it like, would my life be better if I had a bunch of people I don't know reading my books? Probably not. It probably wouldn't change how I write or anything. It'd be validating in some ways, I suppose, but I don't think it'd make anything better, personally. I'd have more time, but I wouldn't, I don't know. It's not even consider anymore. It's not even a dream I have. It's just something some people have, and I do what I do because I enjoy it. The money's pretty much out of it at this point for me, but publishing, on the other hand, right, I'll continue for just 1 second, like on too much of a tangent.
No, you're fine. Go
is that I wouldn't do anything I've done differently if I had a publisher or money, so it doesn't make a difference. However, as a publisher, resources are limited. Our PR is not good. Our relationship with the community is not good. So that's a totally different perspective on it. And I do feel that way when we interact with writers or when we do anything. There is a level of like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Who am I here?
Yeah. Because that was actually my first question. It'd be something that you kind of struggle with. That I'd say yes in most ways possible. Like, I know you said you don't struggle with it as much as an artist, but I mean I do in terms of, again, like perceived lack of skill, getting so hung up on like what other people think of me, what other people think of my writing, like, you know, writing just or doing any kind of art, thinking, okay, is this person gonna think it's any good or not? Like, how do I stack up compared to other people? How am I meeting this expectation that I think others have for me? And sorry, I'm just trying to read. And just the lack of accomplishment that I have, and like, you know, and as it relates to long shot books, again, it's just that, okay, here I am as an artist and as a writer trying to help other writers, but how does that make me, I guess, legitimate if I've never published a book or I don't know what a lot of these people have gone through yet and I'm trying to help promote them? So kind of get sucked into that a little bit. So yeah, I come up with like major.
See, and I see where you're coming from, but it just sounds like pussy shit. It does. I'm not joking. I'm like, I hear that, I'm like, boo-hoo. I'm gonna sound mean. This is a fun experiment with the episode, but I'm not even joking, and I'll extrapolate. Who gives half a fuck? Not joking. Who cares you've never been published? Who cares? Like, look at the people who get published. Are they better than anybody else? Yeah, some of them, but not because they were published. You know, we also have Emily Dickinson and all that, and you know, these brilliant writers who were found out posthumously. I'm probably wrong about her. I'm probably saying the wrong name. I don't care, but it doesn't matter. And as far as I'm concerned, if you worry about that stuff in your art, I'm not gonna say you're not an artist. I'm not gonna be like that.
Yeah.
But your priorities are out of line.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I've never been published. Will this get published? Who's gonna feel this way if I do this? Are people gonna like this? It's natural to worry, but it can't dictate what you do. And you know, the success, and we've had an episode on that, but it's just an argument from authority. And you know, I've been thinking about that concept a lot, arguments from authorities, and I'm going to loosely define this term, but you know, I think the only true authority isn't a university. It's not a press. It's not an agent. It's not us. The true authority is God, and I'm defining God as goodness internally. I'm not defining it as a metaphysical entity, but true intentions and truly just doing your best to do what's best, so to speak. So you can define that however you want, spiritually or otherwise. And really, I think anything else is just like, you know, why don't I have more money? Why don't people praise me? I'm not saying that's exactly what you're doing, but I'm making an example of you as though I was.
Like, I'm more of, my standpoint is, how are people going to take me seriously if I haven't experienced the same things they have, like the publishing things like that's what's feeding into my internal.
And I understand that insecurity, but I'm like,
raging insecurity.
If somebody doesn't take you seriously, fuck them. No, seriously, are they putting bread on your table?
Yeah.
Who cares? If somebody's a jerk, it's just like,
I mean,
yeah, well, you weren't published with Barnes & Noble, so, or Barnes & Noble with Random House, so, like, I don't care.
The server at the restaurant puts the bread on my table.
Yeah, you can afford to go to the restaurant, so who cares what he thinks?
Yeah, but that was actually kind of leading into something else I want to ask. Like, I guess, again, with imposter syndrome being a lot about, like, self-doubt and things like that, like, do you get self-doubt, and if so, what do you think fuels it?
I think self-doubt is commonly, and I'll speak internally, only about myself. And this is kind of stuff I tell myself if I suffer from these emotions. I think it's a symptom of egotism in a lot of ways. You know, narcissists died looking into the pond. He was admiring himself, but self-reflection and too much of it, which I am very much so guilty of, ruminations and all that, it's just narcissism after a certain point. And at the end of the day, I could think all day about not being good enough, or I could just get my job done, you know? And ultimately, that's what it boils down to when I'm writing. It's not like I have to think, I have to do that. There's not much foreplay. You just go and you write the fucking pages and do your best. And other people might operate differently, but how I see it is that's just a distraction from art, you know? It's not, it's all psychological, and it can be healthy to ask yourself questions. Of course you want to make readers happy. Of course you want to be real. But what makes you a real writer isn't other people's respect. You're not a real writer if nobody makes fun of you for your writing. You're not a real writer if somebody cries and sends you, you know, a very finely written letter on some paper that they don't make in this country about touching themselves because they love your work so much. You're a writer because you write at the end of the day. That was a Pinkerton reference. I wasn't.
See, I have a weird answer to this question. It kind of like piggybacks off of, like, I guess why I experienced imposter syndrome in the first place, because
I didn't know what they were doing.
Oh my gosh. No, they just kind of like decided to be in both lanes at once. I don't even know how it's possible. Anyway, sorry. Okay. Again, for me, the self-doubt comes from just getting so hung up on, like, what other people think of me, to the point where I just obsess over it, and I'm like, okay, who am I as an artist? And I don't know, I'm just so fixated on trying to fit in everyone's image and what my work should be. And
well, can I? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you.
No,
I was going to ask you something very relevant,
yes.
but I didn't want to interrupt.
What?
So would that dictate how you do your art, how you approach it?
I mean, if you asked me from last year, I would say yes. Like, how others think of me, like, I'm like, I don't want to offend anybody, you know, especially when you live in an era of, like, cancel culture and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I don't want, like, anyone to get offended or get upset or anything like that. And now I'm like, you know, why do I care anymore? I mean, I've been reading this book, I guess that kind of leads into what I was going to say. I've been reading this book lately.
Mein Kampf.
Exactly. And it talks about, in that book, guess, different kinds of motivators. Like, there's two, like, categories of motivators. One's, like, the intrinsic motivator, being, like, just doing things because you enjoy it and not really caring, you know, you just live your life. And then the other one's being, like, extrinsic. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but, like, doing something in exchange for something else, whether it's, you know, money or, you know, power or whatever, or approval. And I noticed, like, for the longest time, I've just been operating under, like, doing my writing for extrinsic reasons, meaning just in exchange for other people's approval, or even, like, my parents saying, oh, it's a very nice drawing, or, like, someone saying, oh, I like your work, I want to publish it, or something like that, like, just trying to write to fit that mold, instead of just doing to the point where I lost sight of why I was doing it, and sort of beginning to question myself as an artist, like, who am I? Basically, just this chameleon trying to morph into other people's, to fit other people's ideals, and just trying to take the shift off of that extrinsic, moving back into just doing it because you love it. And I lost my train of thought. I feel like I'm going on a tangent now. Anyway.
Yeah, and that was the point I was getting at largely, is that, you know, I think it takes away from the art.
Yeah.
And you should consider your audience.
Yeah.
But I don't think you should let them tell you what to do. It's demonstratively false what I'm about to say, but I still don't believe this to be always the case, especially in writing a book. Art is not a democracy, you know?
Yeah.
And it can be. I mean, you know, if you want to argue about studio film productions and all that, yes. And good decisions can be made from taking input. I'm not saying that you're always right as the artist. I'm not saying that you should never listen to any critic or any reader. I'm very much the opposite. I take that into great account. And love hearing feedback, whether it's something I want to hear or something that's kind of hard to take. So I'm not saying that you're always right, or it's not art if you listen to people. With that said, I think if you're doing something solely because you expect to get praise for it, or if you don't do something because you fear you'll be criticized, I think you're doing yourself, the art, and the audience a disservice, you know? Not you, generally, like you, because the audience. And you know, I like to be harsh on it because I'm speaking from a position of how I talk to myself as a writer, you know, which is basically like the drill sergeant in Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I talk to myself 24/7, but probably a lot meaner. So like, it sounds harsh and all that, but I see it as like a coach thing. I see it as you know, like I almost said an army sergeant. And when you're going into battle, inner battle, and also kind of potentially battle with critics or readers. And I've written articles on this for this site. It's the slut and the prude. You either listen to everybody's feedback and you are the slut, or you do what you're going to do and you're the prude. And it's very difficult to walk that line between caring too much and not caring at all, and becoming too self-absorbed that you never connect with audiences. If you even want to connect with an audience.
Yeah. I think that at that point it boils down to, I guess, what you're intending to get out of writing or doing or creating whatever you're doing. I mean, I know I just did an article recently about that whole who you write for kind of thing, and for me, I would say, at least now, I'm in this mindset of just, what is the story asking you to do? What is it requiring? You know, instead of getting so fixated on okay, I have to write for this person, or I'm writing for myself, or I'm instead of yeah, it is important to take your audience in consideration, but I also think you should just honor the idea first.
Yeah, you have to have faith in it, and I don't even, I don't know, I don't say I don't give myself credit for it, but I definitely listen to the story or the idea, which is something I make fun of if anybody else said. But there is a level of I just know when something's right, and I just listen to instincts, whatever you want to call it. Even if it's the craziest stuff. You know, I'm prepping some promotional stuff for a book now, and it's Jesus Christ, why did I think anybody would ever put up with this? This is beyond crazy. With that said, I knew it was right for the story and characters. And I wish I could think of a great example from pop culture for something that was changed to make audiences happier that did not work out. You could say Justice League, I guess, by getting Joss Whedon to step in. And, you know, Joss Whedon fans didn't like it. WB, DC film fans didn't like it. the cast and crew didn't like it. That's just off the top of my head. And yeah, so I guess I don't remember what the original question was.
I don't even remember.
But I guess the point is that, you consider the audience and the reaction every step of the way, because you're writing as though there's an alleged reader, of course. And I consider that every word that I write. With that said, I don't let them tell me what to do. I still stay true to the story. To me, it's very religious, where the story itself is like a religion, and I'm writing the scripture, and the audience, I don't know, I don't say they're the worshipers, because I don't see it like that exactly. Nobody's worshiping my books, and I hope nobody ever would.
They're like the congregation in some way. Yeah,
I'm preaching to them, and I hope that they connect with the message in the way that I'm conveying it. But so yeah, next one. If you have a next one,
I do. I have so many.
I feel I don't have many questions ever, because I don't write stuff down. I can do some, but
yeah, no, it's okay. I take time, well, sometimes to write stuff down. But this one, I think we already touched on it earlier, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. What constitutes as a legitimate artist to you? And I have something very specific, but I'm gonna let you answer first.
I thought about that question a lot and everything, and at the end of the day, and I'm with you get into linguism with something like that, I think, or at least that's where my mind goes these days. And you can get into subjective or prescriptivist, which is saying this is how you should speak, this is proper English, or descriptivist, saying this is how we speak, and we're just describing it, and language is fluid and is ever evolving. And I'm much more of a descriptivist and always have been. The older I get, the more prescriptivist I find myself stepping into with certain things, particularly legalese. I don't like that. I see a lot of people just casually changing laws because fuck it, it fits with what I want to say, the message I need for this journalistic piece, and that I don't like. So I do second guess this stance sometimes. But with the term artist, I think at the end of the day, who am I to define who is or isn't one? And I do have ideas of what creates an artist. I think it's generally someone who is faithful to their craft and has honest ambitions, but I guess it's very much idealism based on what I think somebody should be, and I think it's my own arrogance at telling people who is or isn't, so I try not to even think of that anymore. 3 or 4 years ago, I probably would have talked for a whole episode's length about who isn't, but you may not like Michael Bay's movies, but if you put me in a room, you put him in a room with a camera, the same amount of money, and a crew, and you gave him 1 day and you gave me 10 years, he'd probably make a better movie in 1 day than I make in 10 years, regardless of what I think of Transformers 2.
Sorry, I didn't know if you were done. Are you done?
I can be.
Okay.
No,
I mean,
I'm done.
Okay, you can keep going. But yeah, I basically don't really think there's any concrete way to define it. I think it's very loose definitions, very specific to the individual, and because I've taken art classes back in back when I was in school, like we had this one professor and we disagree on this to this day. She views artists only as people who have gone to be educated for, again, it's the whole outsider artist thing, like okay, you went through all this formal training and you had all this experience and all these people taught you this and that, and okay, you're an artist that way. Now, outsider artists are not considered legitimate artists, according to her.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't agree with that anyone, but I think you have the soul and the heart and the passion for it. I think that makes you an artist. Whether or not you're published, whether or not, you're featured in galleries, whether or not, like, people know your name, I think even if you just, because I know plenty of people who just create for themselves, like, even if you're doing that, okay, you are an artist in your own way. You just have to define what that is for you and just let it ride.
Where my mind automatically goes, and once again, this is the arrogance coming out. Once again, this is this whole episode. You just call it Todd's a Jerk episode. I don't know, 5. But no, I almost, my mind goes the opposite. When I know someone's formally trained, I almost respect them less. And I'm not saying that's right, but I don't hold the education systems in any high regard. I'm actually very much against a lot of them. I'm not against, you're like, oh, you're against education, you're against people bettering. No, I don't believe in the systems which claim to produce it. I don't think somebody's a better person because they got a degree. I don't think you're a better artist because you paid $100,000 to get a title. And that's kind of, and I'm not saying that you can't be one because of that, and that's where I'm a hypocrite. With that said, I can't define who I think of as an artist and who isn't. I use an example of somebody I love and somebody I don't love. So the first person, the one that I really enjoy, and she is not an artist in any manner, in my opinion, is Halsey. I can't explain it. It's just, she's like, if you're like running or something, she's just the best fucking thing to listen to. And it's just stupid, shallow pop music. It's pretentious and worthless. And I love it. And I'm incredibly attracted to her. And I hope she's watching this video. But here's the better
She just
example.
starts at this part when you say she's...
Yeah, I think David Bowie was an artist. I think even more so Madonna was an artist. I think Like a Prayer is probably like the best music video ever, top 3 at least. And I think Lady Gaga is not an artist. I think she's a good pop star. I think she's very, very talented. I don't think she has any artistry to what she does. And I like some of her old stuff, Paparazzi and all that. I think it's really fun, Bad Romance, but I don't see her as an artist at all. And I think she desperately wants to be, and she just fails at it. Just my opinion. I'm not saying that, I'm not giving him the official title, and obviously nobody would care if I was trying to. But for personal taste, that would be how I define it. Do you have any examples of that?
I was going to say hipsters, but
no hipster can be an artist?
No hipster can be
That's sad.
I'm kidding.
I was going to say, there's plenty of great hipster artists, like, what's her name? American Weekend, Waxahachie. Have you heard of that band?
No.
It's kind of, at least the album that I like. I like their lesser popular one. I think it's less popular, American Weekend. Really, really amazing album. Just kind of like lo-fi, acoustic, kind of poppy in a way, I guess. I hear her album after it's much more popular. It's kind of more grungy, Nirvana inspired. I haven't heard it, so I can't really say.
I was being sarcastic.
I know, but I got to talk about Waxahachie for a second. Phil Elverum's probably considered a hipster of the microphones in Mount Airy, and he's one of my favorite people. Wes Anderson. I don't even know if Wes Anderson is even truly a hipster at this point, because he's such a mainstream version of a hipster that they would reject him. And he's like the Zooey Deschanel of hipster director. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's known to be the hipster director by so many people that he's no longer the hipster director. He's the entry level, but Wes Anderson's great.
He is.
And of course, there's Zooey Deschanel. I mean, I'm not saying she's not, but she has a network TV show. I don't follow her career anymore. Anyhow.
Yeah. Moving on. So I know you said you don't struggle with imposter syndrome yourself, but in what ways do you think it holds people back?
Well, yeah, and that's my whole thing, and that's maybe why I don't deal with imposter syndrome, because at the end of the day, your character is constructed from your actions. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And so how I feel if I'm an imposter or not, the best way to not be one is to be true of heart and do the best that you're doing. And that's it. If you're not, I've written 10 books at this point, and I don't think any one of them is better than maybe like a C+ or B-. I'd say my best one's probably B- on a good day. My opinion. I'm not saying with my satisfaction. I love them all unconditionally. And, my last 2 I really, really adore, and they mean a lot to me. With that said, if I was a critic or something, I'd probably give it a B- if I was being nice. But I did my best, and I'm really proud of that. And even if my capability isn't as great as somebody else's, I'm not Martin Scorsese or something. I'm not him. I'm doing my own thing. I'm finding my own voice. And that's all there is to it. And I think that's the thing, is that the concept of being an imposter, or the struggle with feeling like one, is dispelled by not caring. It's not even a factor to me, because I know that I'm doing my absolute best, and the only way to get rid of imposter syndrome, I think, is just to disprove it to yourself. And I don't know, like I said, something I don't typically deal with as much, or I kind of, I was joking a little bit earlier, being a little harsh, but in a more honest, down-to-earth way of saying it. It's really a matter of perspective, and you have to treat yourself with respect, and you have to treat your art with respect, as well as your audience. And once you start doing that, Marilyn Manson said that he started getting treated like a rock star when he started acting like he was one. And I don't really agree with that. I don't approve of the way he acts, or like throwing stuff at people and abusing bandmates, or I'm not saying that's cool or you should do that. But once you start treating yourself with respect, I think you'll find more people respect you, including with your writing. And that also means being professional and putting your best foot forward, not just for appearances, but to make the absolute best work of art that you can with anything you do. Even if your work of art is skeeting on some bitch.
Oh my gosh.
It was too wholesome. I had to do something.
Just had to throw that kind of touch in there. Anyway, see, I have many instances where it's like, I can speak on this personally just because I experience this all the time, and really for me it's really jacked up my career, and even just aspects of my own life, just thinking, okay, I'm not enough, I have to fall in this approval trap and everything like that. At least for my self-doubt is being fed by the need for approval. And for me, it's taken me 7 years to finish a book. I'm still working through it. Like, I had this like phase where I just didn't like anything I did, and I think a lot of people fall into, when they feel like they're an imposter, they just naturally just dislike everything they do. Or it also, I think it can fuel like performance anxiety. Like, you just get so restless and unable to sit down because you're like, oh gosh, I'm like, what?
I'm sorry, I was going to let you finish.
No.
I spoke up before I caught myself.
Sorry.
I was going to ask if that might be a better definition of imposter syndrome, maybe, or a more broad one is disapproving of everything that you do.
Yeah.
That could be a facet of it. I mean, you can include it on that umbrella term, but...
Yeah. Like, for me, and I also just gave up on drawing, I gave up on art. I chose a career that's not even in my field, and I almost, walked out of long shot books like several months in because I didn't think I was qualified to run a company. And like, I know people who like did not approve of my involvement in long shot books. And
hold up.
What?
Well, now I have to clarify.
What?
You weren't considering walking out when all the shit was going down with the assholes.
No.
See, because I know you don't mean that, because we've talked about that stuff, and if you walked out, I'd be like, okay, cool, do what's best for you.
No.
I care more about your well-being than the company's.
No, I considered walking out back 4 months into making the company.
Yeah, no, I didn't want this thing going around because
No.
people still follow us from that for some reason,
That's
which is
weird.
kind of weird.
Yeah. No.
They are like snooping. I don't want them to see this and be like, oh, we almost got her.
Oh no.
Just wait until we show everybody what Todd posts publicly on his Facebook, which is 10 times more offensive.
No, I was just in relationships with people who were not particularly into my involvement with long shot books, and they were they're like, yeah, you should not be involved in it. I'm like, no, I'm gonna continue to stay involved in this. And it was more of on a relationship level than it was a professional level. But anyway, so kind of and I think because of that, I was so fixated on trying to be the idea of what they thought I should be. I literally got in the back seat at long shot for a while, I think, because of it. And then I think at that point, when you start acting in a way that makes you start acting in a way to try to get other people's approval, trying to fit their mold and do things that are completely unlike you. I think in that way you just become the imposter, and you truly are it's more than just an imposter syndrome. It's you're a legitimate imposter at that point if you're just acting in ways or behaving in ways that don't make you happy, or don't honor the you that you want to be.
Well, that's a very interesting thing we've encountered. This is relevant, I think, to the imposter syndrome thing. You made the point more eloquently than I will, so I'll just be reiterating what you said. But it's strange how much sexism we've encountered with this company.
Really?
Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you've had 2 or 3 guys at this point,
Just
at
two.
least 2 of which, okay, 2
Jeez.
that you're romantically involved with, and then pressure from other people. You're a woman, why are you in our company? And not taking it seriously, or trying to pressure you out of it. because a woman isn't a business owner.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, you know, obviously it's absurd and stupid and way outdated, but there's that, and then there's always this weird thing with it, because I'm a man and you're a woman, we have a company together, and that's unorthodox. Which I admit, yeah, I guess it's unorthodox. I don't even think about it. To me, it's more just like, you're my friend, and we have similar interests, and I trust you, and it was a good idea.
Yeah. Well, we cannot turn this way. There's a sign over there that says don't do that.
Is there really?
Yeah, there's a sign there. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, I do see that now. I'm wondering how we can do this.
Yeah, we'll just go back and keep going straight. Anyway,
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you.
No, I appreciate that, because I was looking at it, I was like, how am I supposed to swing this? This is nuts.
I don't understand vehicles. Anyway, I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But
We'll just go this
But
way.
no, I mean, it's this constant thing where you're getting told who to be and what's right for you.
It's weird, because the one relationship I was in, it's not that this individual was necessarily openly hateful about my involvement with Longshot. He was just very much, again, this is like a very sexist thing, and I still find it weird, because it is someone who is like my age. He basically said, you know, your role in life is to give birth to children. You're not really, like, your company's cute and all, but eventually you're going to find your place. And it was like the most sexist thing I've ever heard in my life coming from someone I know. And then the next time around, it was very much this next person. You can just keep going straight.
You think so?
Yeah, I
Why
think we'll
not?
be fine. Yeah,
It's young.
we're on an adventure. But and the next person was very much giving me this list of things to change about myself in order to make the relationship work. And
In order to be a better feminist.
yeah, clearly.
This man was telling you what to believe and how to act.
Clearly. And one of those things was to walk away from Longshot. And then for a split second, I thought, you know, what if I did do that? And then I realized, I'm like, why as the woman should I be the one who has to give things up? And, you know, why do I need someone's permission to, you know, have my own company? Why do I need permission to, I don't know, be the queen of my own world, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. But
Yeah. What's this thing where, and I believe this, I think this is what Longshot has that other companies don't, is that it's just total unconditional acceptance, not just of you, but the writers and
just me.
and everybody.
Yeah.
Because, you know, all these people, and this is pressure for authors as well, where they're saying, conform to this, be this person.
Yeah.
You know, they're imposing imposter syndrome onto you, essentially, by trying to turn you into one.
Yeah.
And we're just saying, do your thing. We may not always understand or agree with it, but we're going to try our best to, and we're going to try to help you do what you want for yourself as an artist to the best extent that we can. And just, you know, we may not always understand, or we may not always see it that way immediately, but we always accept art and artists because we have very low standards of submission. No. No, but I think that's the draw. And I think that's the thing, is that all these, you know, to use this anecdote as an example, these fucking guys are like, you shouldn't be this way. This isn't how a woman is. You need to do this, and you need to do that. And you turn away from them. And I'm not romantically involved with you, obviously. But I'm basically just like, yeah, you know, let's start a company. You know, if you want to leave, if life's too much, you can. Whatever's best for you. I just want you to be happy, and we'll do our thing.
Yeah.
And there's no pressure. And it's like, it's just silly to me.
Yeah.
Because there's no competition on my end. I'm not holding you at gunpoint. I'm not.
No, you're not. And it was such an odd thing. And
Oh, man, I cannot see it all.
yeah.
I think I got this. I'm just letting you know
Alright,
now. So
cool.
just keep your eyes out.
I'm proud of you. You can do this. No, it was just the weirdest. It was the weirdest experience I've had. I'm like, okay, am I? And even during some of our other situations, there, like, I've had people tell me, you know, Todd's a predominant voice of Longshot books. He's, you know,
I love
the
when
one
people
that
say that, because I always get to say, like, I don't want to be, I don't want to do videos and write articles. Please submit.
yeah.
I want to not do anything.
Please.
I would be so happy if I wasn't. All I want is more people to speak up for our company instead of me. Because I know I'm not the best guy to do it. I know I'm the worst guy. Please replace me.
I know. And I think instances like that just continue to fuel my self-doubt, because then I think I'm like, okay, maybe they're right, maybe I'm not supposed to be doing these things, and I'm like, again, and then it goes back to just not caring, and I guess my final question I had, if you're okay to move on.
I had a point, I'll come back to it.
Okay, cool, all right. You already touched on it earlier, but I guess how do you deal with it? Those feelings of just imposter syndrome.
I don't get them anymore.
Yeah.
I cured it.
Okay, what'd you do?
I never really had it, but, I just did my best, and I just accepted that. And that's it. If I failed... Well, no, I don't think I failed, ever. Even my worst book. And I don't dislike my books, but I would never write or release them if I did now. I've grown. My first book I wrote when I was, I think, 13. And I haven't stopped. It's been a year and a half, roughly on average, ever since. And that's because I took like a few years off, off with college, and we'll say an average of a book every year and a half. And I wouldn't do that again, but I wouldn't undo any of it. And I wouldn't consider anything I've done a failure, because I've always done my best. And for me, failure would be doing less than that.
Yeah.
So I don't consider it. I don't think it's important. I think it's almost superficial. At least how I see it internally. And, where is self-doubt going to get you? Is self-doubt going to help you? Maybe, if you work to prove it wrong. If you see your anxieties as a weight you have to lift in order to get stronger, then that's even better. And in many ways, I do experience that. But I don't see it anymore as I'm fake, I suck, I'm worthless. I see it as I have this potential, and I know I haven't unlocked it. And I don't have this potential because I'm special. I have this potential because I think everybody does. I think that everybody on Earth has something, remarkable about them. And it may not be art, but I think everybody has great potential. And it's a disservice to withhold that from the world. It's actually selfish, I think, not to achieve your full potential, because you owe that to the world. And you owe it to yourself to achieve the greatest you can become. I think most people on Earth go without ever meeting themselves. And I've seen that firsthand. It's a really scary sight to see, a grown man who never became the person that he should have been. And to me, that's failure. I don't care if I never get a book deal. I don't care if I never get more than one reader for any other book that I ever write. To me, failure is not doing my best. And I think that's how you should view it. And like I said, I see it when I have to write, when I have to do something. I just think, I have to prove this to myself and everybody else that this is what I can do. But it's never I can't do this. It's I know I can do this, but I have to prove it. I have to demonstrate it. I can't just say I have potential. You have to turn potential energy into kinetic. And I guess that's how I would recommend dealing with it. I don't say I suffer from it, but whatever loosely close cousin of that anxiety that there is, that's how I deal with it, or I would recommend it to someone who has it from an outsider's perspective on the subject.
See, I guess sort of piggybacking off of what you're saying about failure and things like that. Gosh, how do I want to say this? Sometimes I think we keep things like imposter syndrome going. We keep things like our fears and all this like clutter and stuff in our lives, because if we removed it, if we face like the imposter syndrome, if we let imposter syndrome cripple us in a way, we think in a way it benefits us, because then we don't have to worry about taking the risk. We don't have to worry about trying. We don't have to worry about failing. And I think sometimes you like I once was asked the question of, okay, here's your insecurities, here's that. Now, how are your insecurities benefiting you? Okay, they're preventing you from doing the work of trying. And I think how this leads in, I guess, to my personal solution of how to combat imposter syndrome is you have to face this.
I don't think that ethnical genocide's a solution.
Oh my gosh, no.
So you said solution. It's like, I can squeeze this in.
Oh my gosh, I hate you. Okay, but I think there is no one size fits all. It really just depends on what's holding you back, what's hanging you up, what fuels your self-doubt, and just removing all the noise, removing all distractions of, oh, am I getting published? Am I this? You know, why do you want to get published so badly? Is it for approval? Is it for fame? Is it for ratings? What is it for? And, you know, what are you trying to fill by trying to do these things? And I think once you start tackling the reasons you feel like you're an imposter, and once you start facing those things, again, it's all up to the individual. For instance, mine's just the approval trap. And once I realize, okay, I shouldn't depend on other people's approval for my self-worth and my legitimacy as an artist, and if I feel there's a lack of skill, then the only way I can get through that is by practicing more, and even then combating, you know, the performance anxiety and things like that. And I think for me, that's the way I would solve it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that boils down to, like you said, with doubt. I think it holds you back. I think that, you shouldn't be asking yourself, you know, oh, what'll happen if I fail to do this?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should also just assume that you're going to be successful all the time either.
No.
But you should instead of saying, you know, can I do this, can I not do this, and set limits for yourself, you should say, how can I do this?
Yeah.
How can I accomplish this? And I think that you're going to have a much greater success rate, even if that success is just internal satisfaction, which I think means a lot more than any award. I don't care about awards or anything. I've won them. They're cool. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything to me. I would rather have virtue of character. Even if, you know, I wrote the same essays that got me the awards and stuff, I would have rather have written them and not gotten an award than to have written something that I wasn't proud of and been praised for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's a quote by Kierkegaard. It's one of my favorites. I quote it all the time. I've probably done it on the show before. Irony is the song of the bird that loves its cage. Or maybe it's satire is the song of the bird that loves its cage. I believe it's satire. But I'm going to say this about kind of both, because this is a trend I see with our generation a lot. Like these ironic posts and this cultural trend of, I'm worthless, I'm fat, I'm depressed all the time. And I think there could be catharsis in that. I think there could be, maybe there is a healthy level of joking about it. But to a certain extent, I think it is a sardonic means of rumination. Because if you repeat to yourself every day, like, I'm going to do my best, today's going to be a good day, that kind of thing. And they say that does have a positive effect. They say to look in the mirror and say that you love yourself. I think 3 times a day. I don't know. I've never done it, but that's the thing that psychologists tell people to do. I've seen it on a TV show or two. And if you look in the mirror every day and say, I'm worthless, or you say, I'm an imposter, my art sucks, then you're kind of putting a cap on your potential, you know?
I get up in the morning every day and I look myself in the mirror and I think, oh, you again. Just kidding.
Yeah, like, I don't know. You shouldn't say, like, I'm the best ever or anything like that. But I think it could be healthy to say, I could be, if I try. I don't think it's up for you to determine your worth. I don't think it's up for anybody else to determine your worth. But yeah, I think imposter syndrome, I think it's a disease. And the sooner that you kill it off in yourself, the sooner you'll unlock your true potential as an artist, but more importantly, just as a growing human being.
Well, I think that's well said. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Not on this subject. There's things I would talk about, but nothing about imposter syndrome.
Okay. So, you ready to wrap up?
Yeah.
Alright, well, goodbye everyone.